Hello and welcome to Business Live. My name is Winston Taki, and now to our first business story. Senior lecturer at the Department of Finance, University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Benjamin Amoah, has expressed worry over the rising non-performing loan within the financial sector. According to him, a robust and efficient credit scoring system should be established to save the operations of sector players. He has been speaking to Joy Business, James Ishon.
Grateful to have you, Doc. We'll come into the post-election matters, especially when it comes to the economy. But let's start from financial literacy. Over some time, we've seen, people preaching the gospel, if I should say, of financial literacy. But I want to pick your thought on the role policy and regulation has to play when it comes to financial literacy in our space.
The first and foremost responsibility for investor education or public financial education falls on the regulators. The regulators here, I'm talking about Bank of Ghana, I'm talking about National Pension Regulatory Authority, Securities and Exchange Commission, and NIC. These are the four principal regulators that we have in the country, and to a large extent, Ministry of Finance. So in their mandate, there are provisions in their mandate that they have to educate the public when it comes to issues relating to finance. And to be specific, what relates to each regulator in terms of the regulator's industry domain. So Bank of Ghana regulates the banking and specialized deposit institutions. So anything that is of interest for consumers of financial services within the banking space is the responsibility of Bank of Ghana. When you go to pensions, it's National Pension Regulatory Authority. Securities, market, mutual fund, investment falls under the domain of Securities and Exchange Commission Ghana. And when it comes to insurance, we are talking about National Insurance Commission. Having said that, from the policy point of view, the financial institutions themselves also have a responsibility because they stand to gain the most if we are able to get a large segment of our population being financially literate.
Non-performing loans has been one of the biggest problems when it comes to our financial sector. We've had banks suffering as a result of that, also savings and loans companies. I remember recently in one of their annual general meetings, they made mention of the fact that teachers, nurses, and basically public workers do abscond to other parts of the world with these monies being borrowed from some of these savings and loans companies. How do we sort of get our head around this? What's the way forward?
So long as you provide credit in any form, as a bank or even if you are selling normal tangible goods and services and it's on credit, you will have the problem with non-performance in terms of loans or credit. So once the economy is moving more from cash-based transactions to a credit-supported economy, we'll be confronted with non-performing loans. But the issue then is the high level of non-performing loans. That clearly shows that we are having challenges and difficulties in loan management from the banks. And that will start from when the loan request is made by the client. The process that the client will go through, the before loan process, right? Then the after loan process. What do we do? And how best do we manage the entire process so that it will be successful in the sense that the loan will perform, meaning that the borrower will end up paying for the facility. So we need to look at the entire chain, not just after the loan, but even before the loan is given. What are we doing within that space? And what measures do we have, not only the bank, but what measures do we have as a country to deal with before loan and after loan extension process so that we can deal with the non-performing loans? One thing that we can rely on is the national identity. You see, the national identity is one particular unique identifier that if we are successful as taking a strong hold on it, it will help us to know who is who. And if you're able to link all our other economic activities around the national ID, then we have solved a big problem when it comes to the area of non-performing loans. In that case, you cannot take loan from one institution and then disguise yourself and go and take another loan from another institution. There will always be a trail on you because your unique identity is who you are. This leads us into the discussion of the credit scoring. Once we start building up this culture of credit scoring, right from the universities or let's say the tertiary institutions, young adult level, and then you have your credit score, you have a score, it will be your responsibility to maintain a good score. Because the higher your score, the lower the rate at which you are going to borrow. So everybody will have a unique identity that mimics his or her behavior. Every business will also have a unique identity, which is a credit score that is going to mimic his or her behavior as a borrower. So in that case, if you go for a facility and then you mismanage the facility, it will affect your score. It will affect your next loan rate. If you're an individual and you go for a facility and then you mismanage the facility, it will also affect your score. So your credit, the credit scoring system now will help us to model many of us in the formal sector and even the informal sector to be financially disciplined. What we have to do is to speed up the process of finalizing the credit score, maybe linking it up to the Ghana national identity, Ghana card identity, so that it becomes a unique identifier, and then I can be known and my history can be tracked. Even if I have to buy electricity, right, I need to use my ID, and how I buy my electricity should also give me a score on the credit scoring system. Water bill, how promptly I pay my water should also be calibrated into my credit score. Other things that I buy, if I'm buying furniture on credit, should also be calibrated onto the credit score. If you're able to do this, the entire system will be built on credit. And that credit system will be so robust that if an individual goes to a facility and is not able to pay, he can easily be tracked. And then we can deal with such bad borrowers, because the existence of the bad borrowers is what is hurting the good borrower. Because the banks sometimes find it difficult to differentiate between a good and a bad borrower, the banks end up charging a standard rate. And the standard rate becomes so expensive for the good borrowers, but less expensive for the bad borrowers. And that is what is resulting in these high NPLs that we are seeing. So we need to manage the entire loan process. What I mean is before the loan is given, when the loan is given, and then after the loan. And the objective is that the borrower must come again for another loan.
But should that be the role of the regulator or the banks or financial, institutions themselves?
It's a responsibility for all. It's a responsibility for the regulator, the banks, the individuals, or let's say financial service consumers. We all have a responsibility. You understand? So we can't leave it on the doorstep of the regulator. We can't leave it on the doorstep of the financial institutions. All of us have a responsibility. From the central government point of view, we can use the Ghana card as a starting point. And let's quickly build the credit score around the Ghana card. And let's have that unique identifier when it comes to lending. Let's pull the data together so that before I even go for a credit facility, I'll be directed to go for a credit score. And I'm going to use that credit score as one of my, my documents to request for the loan. The banks understand what the score means, and I also understand what it means for me. So that when I service or I don't service the loan, it will then affect my next score that I'll have. And that will bring in some level of discipline. If we can start, we can even go back to the mobile money account and use our behavior on the mobile money account when we go for these mobile money loans as a starting point to start building the score. Especially for those who have not borrowed formally, we can use the mobile money conduit as a starting point to build a credit score. At the universities, those who have not come for loan before, we can also target them. If they have gone for student loan, it's also another area that we can use to manage or to start building the credit score. The point is that you must build the credit score over time. You can't just start on the ground zero. So we should start building the credit score over time. And as we build it and we educate the public, we'll be able to deal with these non-performing loans. It's not only about individuals. Institutions or businesses will also have to get their own credit score, which will also mimic their borrowing behavior. In the end, the credit score will help us deal with financial indiscipline within the space.
As the year comes to a close, many analysts are predicting a rebound in the economy for the next administration due to the peaceful general election. Joy Business had a conversation with a senior country partner for auditing and professional services firm KPMG in Ghana, Anthony Sapon, who said the Bank of Ghana must implement more measures to stabilize the cedi and ensure price stability.
The Bank of Ghana, as well as the monetary policy, it's important that they keep on focusing on one of the primary functions of the Bank of Ghana, which is price stability, because it's within that anchor that a lot of all the other factors we have discussed begin to take shape and form.
Looking at all the challenges we've gone through since 2022 and all that, I do think there are lessons for businesses, especially SMEs, to pick up from so that they will be able to grow.
So for SMEs, yes, I believe that through the processes of the challenges that we've gone through in the economy and also globally, you'll find that some SMEs actually have to close down. Others also took advantage of opportunities and expanded. And therefore, the lesson is that as businesses, SMEs that are in the economy that intends to grow, one of the lessons is what we call sustainable business. Focusing on your core mandate, focusing on the core areas that you have set yourself to do, and ensuring that, one, you are improving product quality, two, you are becoming efficient, and three, you are keeping proper records and being accountable to your stakeholders, which includes owners, which include financial institutions that support you with financing. If you do that, then it allows you to be able to attract funding and to grow where you have to grow. The second one is also adaptation. When the environment is changing and there are certain things that you do that you cannot do, you need to scout around the environment and adapt some of the new opportunities that are coming. And I think we saw that through the COVID crisis, where people went into different areas other than what they were used to, and those businesses were able to survive from that perspective. And finally, I will say that for small business, governance sometimes is taken for granted. And therefore, because most of these businesses are started by individuals and are run purely on family structures, sometimes even when the first generation of the entrepreneur is out, the businesses suffer to continue. We need to embrace governance structures that ensure that we include professionals in the management of our small businesses, and that way we learn from those professionals, and we also bring in our entrepreneurial natural instinct and wisdom to run the business. So in that case, the business is not dependent upon one person, and it allows to be able to survive to past generations. And as I said, this must also be linked with the social element. People work in institutions, and people make institutions. And therefore, even if you are a small business and you are working with 2 or 3 persons, ensure that their welfare and their well-being is important to the business. And when you do that, the individuals in those institutions will become loyal and they will give up their best. And finally, let's ensure that whatever we do, we are protecting the society, which is the environmental component. And so this whole concept of ESG is not just for the big institutions. Every business has a role to play, whether small, medium, or large. And if we all focus on these elements, it will bring sustainability, it will bring opportunities that can improve the businesses, and it will allow these small businesses to take advantage of the opportunities and grow. And when they grow, they hopefully they also focus on cost efficiency, become profitable, reinvest in the business, and become better for all.
All right. So finally, before I let you go, any goodwill message for, customers, clients, business partners, people of Ghana, government, or anybody at all?
We are actually grateful to God that in a few days, the year 2024 is coming to an end. And we do know that 2024 was also has been a challenging year for most of us Ghanaians. But we need to pride ourselves that through all of this, we have been able to go through an election which generally has been assessed as peaceful, notwithstanding some worrying pockets of disturbances, loss of life, and individuals trying to take into their own hands the legal mandate of EC in some of the constituencies. But generally, I think that it's gone well, and we are also grateful that the opposing or the opponents, particularly the existing or the current vice president, conceded early, showing a good statesmanship. And then, of course, you also see that the president-elect subsequently has been giving messages that are inspiring and bringing hope and looking at areas that he will prioritize, which will bring the needed progressive adjustment to our economies or improvement ongoing.
We have more business update for you right after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back from that break. Now to more business news. Ghana is likely to lose more than $100 million in additional revenues due to non-processing of all the raw cashew nuts in the country. There is more in this report.
And Cashew Industry is widely considered by many cashew industry experts as one of the most promising in Africa. Ghana currently produces about 200 tons of raw cashew nuts, according to official data from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, and is among the best quality cashew nut producers in the world. But the sector over the years has been bedeviled by so many challenges.
A lot of difficulties in terms of, improving their livelihoods, in terms of income, earning income, in terms of getting themselves employed, to be able to put food on the table. Very, very great challenge. And as, people, as human beings, our main, I think source of earnings you should either be employed or you can be self-employed. Maybe as a farmer or as, an entrepreneur engaged in some kind of business. But for disabled people, there are no opportunity to, be able to get those opportunities to engage themselves, to free themselves. In fact, most times, physically challenged people in Sierra Leone particularly, what they do is to go begging on the street.
I think the cashew sector is dominated in the processing part by women. I manage a factory that has 2,000 women. That has 2,000 employees. 95% of them are women. So the processing business is already dominated by women. My advice will be for the farmers, the production sector, where we don't have a lot of representation of women. The production is still male dominated because in Africa, it's very difficult for women to have access to land. So that's been one of the handicaps for women.
According to the Ghana Export Promotion Authority in 2021, it is estimated that Ghana loses between $30 million to $100 million every year in additional revenues due to not processing all the raw cashew nuts produced in the country. Experts are worried about the persistent challenges confronting farmers.
The state of processing plants in Ghana is nothing to write home about. Virtually all the processing plants have closed down, except a few that are producing few thousands. In fact, currently Ghana exports almost 95% of all its production as raw nuts, and it is not good for the industry. And the reason being that our processing capacity is now gone down, and our processors also don't have the needed finance to stock the nuts for the whole year, and therefore those farmers also have to sell to people who can buy and pay them. And that is the challenge the processors are facing. If the processors have finance, especially from the financial institutions that will support them, then they can process throughout the year. But if a processor taking a loan at 35, 45, 55%, it's a no-go zone. It is nothing to write home about. That is what is really collapsing the industry. We don't have long-term finance for the processing sector, and that is a big challenge.
The Ghana Cashew Council alluded that although Ghana's raw cashew nuts enjoys distinct advantages over other producers, challenges such as high raw cashew nut prices and lack of access to affordable finance remain key impediment factors in the underutilization of the country's processing factories to generate additional revenues.
We won't say we have been neglected, because all these years that we have been running, Ministry of Agriculture has supported us in the research, in the distribution, and in even the propagation. But if there's any place that has been regretted, it's from the financial institution. The financial institutions don't really understand the cashew sector, and for that matter, they are not making long-term finance available. If you give a trader a loan at 45% turnover 1 month, and you give that same loan to a processor, turnover 1 year, the processing company will collapse. We have been engaging with some of the financial institutions for them to understand really the culture of cashew processing. Some have understood, but they are yet to make the impact of releasing funding for the sector. But at the moment, we are also talking to our development partners like SECO, like GIZ, to support the sector. In fact, SECO last year even supported with machinery so that processing can go on very well. But there's still the issue of inadequate finance for stocking and stocking for the production process.
Some foreign experts are stressing on the need for Ghana to develop favorable policies to help unearth the huge potential of cashew, urging authorities to emulate the example of Vietnam, which has the most competitive cashew industry in the world.
Program which we recommend to all professionals in the value chain, from public sector or from private sector, because it's really important to understand the chain, to understand the linkages, the production area, the commercialization of cashew, but also we, let's say, transmit specific skills, how to motivate people, how to moderate sessions and so on, to be a good professional in the cashew value chain.
Based on your observation over the years, what are some of the key challenges you guys have seen within the value chain?
Yeah, key challenges in the value chain is that have been mentioned also in the workshop, in the speeches in the beginning. One is to increase the transformation, the processing of cashew here in the African countries. I think that is really a challenge, because most of the cashew is still processed in the Asian countries. The sustainability issues, so we have to look for cashew which is produced sustainability, that is sustainable, which is really a requirement from the European and the American markets. So it shall be free, for example, of pesticide residues or of child labor, so that has specific dimensions. And in the future we need really full traceable value chains also for cashew, to get the access to the European market especially.
What is the role of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to increase the productivity and efficiency of farmers in the cashew value chain by improving crop quality and strengthening the capacity of cooperatives, farmer associations, nursery operators, and input suppliers, as well as boost cashew trade by improving harvest and post-harvest techniques, addressing gaps in data collection, and improving supply chain linkages?
The Ministry of Food and Agriculture is mainly focused on the policy environment for the farmers to have their agriculture thrive. And for cashew, it's part of the tree crops development program that the ministry has rolled out through the establishment of the Tree Crops Development Authority. So all that is needed to make sure that the cashew industry thrives are being implemented by the Tree Crops Development Authority. Government has given them that role to play from production up to the financing of production activities, all are inclusive. So they will be taking care of that.
Are you guys monitoring what is happening at the tree crop development?
They surely they report to the Minister of Food and Agriculture.
But it seems the challenges still persist.
The challenges persist. That is why they have been brought to find solutions to it. They are being resourced to do what they have to do. They are working with the development partners to get the resources and then the support also that is needed.
Processing cashew in Africa is said to be growing fast since 2016. This development has been attributed to the conducive governmental policies, new technologies, and market-lead initiatives.
Going to this year, I think we may even lose more, because as at January 2024, there were 150 registered cashew buying companies with GCNet. And so these companies were all scrambling for the little production. Our production is just roughly around 30,000 metric tons. And if all these 150 companies are buying even 10,000 metric tons, everything is gone. And they are buying it at a premium, at a higher price, which our processors cannot compete. And once you don't process, you don't add value. When we add value, we sell the cashew 5-6 times more than the raw nuts. And that is where we are running into difficulties with so the few processing companies, local processing companies, currently I'll say it's only one that is doing very well at based in Afenya, Winker, that is doing very well. But because it's getting support from the sector, and it's also taking advantage of donor resources. But the rest are minor processing companies that are processing less than 100 metric tons a year, less than 200 metric tons a year, and it's nothing to write home about.
The situation in Ghana does not reflect the general growth trajectory on the continent. For Joy Business, James Eshen.
That's all for business. My name is Winston Taki. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your festives. Bye-bye.